Well, Robert Gutsche is an associate professor at Lancaster University in the United Kingdom, and he joins us now on Skype from there. Robert, I want to focus on the political calculations that both sides are making here. So, given that Republicans have the majority in the Senate, presumably President Trump is going to be acquitted, but the Democrats have decided to go through with this anyway and push to call witnesses. So, is this now about trying to get potentially damaging information out in an election year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best that the Democrats can hope for from this trial, to be quite honest. I mean, Republicans are going to fall in line, and they're going to follow Mitch McConnell, and they're going to follow the other leaders in how they vote. Quite frankly, these are not autonomous senators, as it were. They're part of a larger political bloc, and they're going to follow the guidance of the leaders. So the best the Democrats can probably hope for is some sort of smoking gun. Though it does look like if they had a smoking gun, it would have come out when the House was debating this.
Robert, you say that it's a political bloc, but I also recall Mitch McConnell has said he's essentially going to coordinate with the White House, and that has made some moderate Republicans pretty nervous. I see there'll now be a discussion about witnesses and documentary evidence, which McConnell was previously completely opposed to. So does that mean that some moderate Republicans could flip?
Well, certainly, and if they do flip, it would be with the approval of the leaders. They wouldn't just make that decision in their own offices. That would be something that would be coordinated among the Republicans as a whole. So if that were approved, the leaders would be pretty confident that that evidence and those witnesses wouldn't be too damaging to Donald Trump, who certainly is going to be using this trial and the actions of the Democrats against them in this 2020 election.
I see that one of those witnesses could potentially now be John Bolton, a very big name there. And initially, we'd heard that there was going to be no one potentially testifying from the White House. So now, do you think that Nancy Pelosi's decision to delay sending these articles of impeachment to the Senate has essentially paid off?
Well, the John Bolton part is really interesting. Bolton and Trump weren't necessarily big fans of each other. And so John Bolton could be a key witness if he does come forward. Certainly watching the delay of the papers heading over to the Senate also corresponded with U.S. strikes with Iran and that tension that we saw in those military bases in Iraq. So there was some question about whether the delay had to do with military action, had to do with this sort of backdoor sort of negotiation over what's going on in terms of witnesses and evidence. But what's going to be happening starting next week is going to be an unprecedented political debate and an ideological war happening on the floor of the Senate. Something that could be very helpful for Donald Trump if he's able to sway it in his direction, and something that could be quite damaging to Democrats if they're not able to make their case.
You say an ideological war. How is all this likely to play out with voters in an election year?
Well, we look back at what happened in the impeachment with President Clinton, and certainly that was a divisive time for the country, going through a cultural revolution of sorts, and certainly a divide between Republicans and Democrats. This time, it's very different. We've seen violence happen at rallies for Republicans and for Donald Trump. We've seen white supremacy exploding on the streets throughout the United States. We've seen a lot of news coverage of this violence, and so there's great concern that whatever turmoil might be coming out on the Senate floor in terms of political banter could actually explode into something in neighborhoods and in communities, or at rallies, as we're looking at both sides holding lots of these public events with massive security. And gatherings of a lot of hot heads across the country. So what we see happening on the Senate floor could actually happen on the streets of the United States, unfortunately, in violent ways.
A potentially divisive year ahead there. Robert Gutsche from Lancaster University, thanks for your insight on Al Jazeera.
Thanks.